Hello, good morning. My name is Jarrett Dillard, and I'm the division manager of the Contract Compliance and Labor Standards Division. And I'm going to be presenting today about prevailing wage. And so it's something that's near and dear to our heart here in contract compliance. And so we just want to make sure that everybody knows that may be thinking about, doing some business within the city of Kansas City or with the city of Kansas City. And this is going to kind of explain a little bit of what we enforce and how we enforce those regulations. CREO, just a little bit about CREO. CREO protects our residents against discrimination in employment and public accommodations by investigating discrimination claims and enforcing civil rights laws. We also work to prevent discrimination and to use economic equity and inclusion for our residents and businesses through the city's diversity certification program and monitoring and enforcing labor standards and prevailing wage. CCLS in particular enforces construction employment goals as set forth by the City Council on contracts requiring more than 800 construction labor hours and with an estimated cost exceeding $300,000. Equal employment standards on all city construction contracts. So it's applicable to all city construction contracts. So that's important to remember. The prevailing wage application on city-funded or incentivized contracts exceeding $75,000 and or any Davis-Bacon is applicable with a threshold of $2,000. We ensure and enforce, and you'll hear that word a lot, enforcement, because that's what we do, because we want to make sure that everybody that is working on a city funded project is treated fairly and that they're paid correctly. We enforce the application of prevailing wages on all projects for public use. So that's important to note. Public use, that term dictates what prevailing wage it comes into play. Or to benefit workers on certain projects receiving economic development incentives. This allows workers in construction trades to receive wages typical in the industry. So we want to make sure that our workers that are working hard developing the infrastructure in the city of Kansas City are getting paid their just due. And that is prevailing wage within Missouri. And what does prevailing wages do? Well, I'm glad you asked. The application of prevailing wages prevents abuse of workers and economic injury to workers. So it's all about preventing economic injury to our workforce. These are some terms that are important to us and that you need to know. Compliance. We apply state and local labor compliance regulations and requirements. We have a supportive role as well. People think that we're just enforcement, but we do act as a support to contractors and to our workers. We enforce those labor standards because we want to make sure that everywhere we're a teammate. We're not just regulatory. We want to be a teammate to anybody that's working within the city of Kansas City. We monitor contract performance. We're a part of the project from the beginning until the end. We investigate probable cause violations and complaints of underpayment, order restitution when appropriate, and assess liquidated damages when appropriate. We don't want to do that. That's the last resort. We want to educate, then we want to regulate. We want to make sure that you understand what it is that you need to do to be in compliance when you work on a city of Kansas City project. So if the investigation needs to happen and a contractor is seen to be egregious or the activity is seen to be egregious and continuous, there is sanction and debarment that we can impose. And that's something that, again, is the last resort, but it's something that you need to know that we can do. Here are some key terms that are important for you to know. Again, prevailing wage rate is the hourly rate of wages for workers as set forth in the Missouri Annual Wage Order as determined by the state of Missouri for the locality or as set forth in the Davis-Bacon wage decision for the locality at the time of the contract. Public body, the state of Missouri or any officer, official, authority, board, or commission of the state or other political subdivisions thereof, or any institution supported in whole or in part by public funds. So this is important because anytime you're working on the City of Kansas City construction project, it's on behalf of a public body because we are publicly funded. Wage theft is what we want to prevent. Wage theft means the withholding or denial of wages or employee benefits rightfully owed to a worker or employee. So that's why we're here. That's why we're talking to you today, is because we're trying to prevent wage theft. Building construction. Okay, this is the terms in Missouri that two construction projects are classified in is building construction, which is one, and then there's also heavy highway construction. Building construction specifically consists of building structures, including modifications, additions, or repairs, or both, to be used for shelter, protection, comfort, convenience, entertainment, or recreation, or for the protection of people or equipment. Additionally, all work related to the construction, alteration, etc., or repair of buildings, including for the residential use of single or multifamily units. So that is building construction. So one of the things that we do here in our office and my team does is a part of the compliance piece and the education piece is that we go out to all city construction projects and we interview workers because it starts there. We want to connect with the workforce to make sure that they know that one, that we're here for them in a supportive role. Also, we want to make sure they're being treated fairly and ultimately being paid fairly. So in order to do that, we have to go out on those sites and monitor. And we call those on-site visits, on-site audits. This is where the CCLS compliance officers, we are authorized by the city to do so. And so we don't want you to be shocked. It's within your contract, and it's always important for any potential contractors to read their contract because that's something that we do and we are able to do, and it's our right to do. So that capacity cannot be denied. So it's important to know that. So you will see the compliance officers on your projects from time to time. And so equal opportunity, that's what the Civil Rights and Equal Opportunity Program is ultimately about. And this means, and I'm going to read this because it's very important, all construction contractors on city construction contracts will adhere to the Equal Opportunity Clause and will not discriminate against any employee or applicant for employment because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, or ancestry, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or age. That's where we were created for. We want to make sure that everyone is treated fairly. We will take affirmative action to ensure that employees are treated fairly during employment without regard to their protected classes. Such actions shall include, but not limited to, the following: employment, promotion, demotion, or transfer, recruitment or recruitment advertising, layoff or termination, rates of pay or other forms of compensation, and selection for training, including internships. So these are the things that we here tend to protect. That's what we do here. We also make sure that things are posted in conspicuous places. They want to make sure everybody understands, in particular, the wage order, what they're supposed to be getting paid while they're on the city project. So for example, if we're out and we notice if someone talks to us and say they've been discriminated against in some way, shape, form, or fashion, there's a way to complain. Chapter 38 of Civil Rights of the City of Kansas City Ordinance provides the protection of workers on city projects to be from discriminatory acts. And here you can see the information. And also, if you want to take it down now, and if you want to, Rio, I believe, will be able to send that out to you, or you can call us. We can give this information out to you. But these are the ways that you can report these things. You can go to my KCMO app. That is for you tech-savvy people that have these nice fancy phones. Or you can call our 311 Action Center. They can take your complaint. Or you can call our office directly by the number you see here. And one of our officers, intake officers, our investigators will assist you in that regard. So whenever you work on the City of Kansas City project, it is again going to be prevailing wage. And so you ask, how will we know what we need to pay our workers? Well, I'm glad you asked that. There is such thing called a Missouri State Annual Wage Order. Okay. And this is what you receive in every contract that you have with the City of Kansas City. And it will tell you exactly what rate of pay you need to pay for the particular trades that you have on your particular scope of work. Okay. And we talked about postings in a previous slide. So that information will need to be posted and made conspicuous to all your workers. So if they have a question about what they want to get paid, you should be able to provide that information to them. Very important. So this is Missouri state law. So if there is an issue that you're having that we can't particularly answer, we'll seek guidance from the Department of Labor because they govern us. And the laws that we enforce come from the state. And this is their website. So you can always go find those annual wage orders if you want to. If you have an idea, if you don't have an idea, you can always go to the Missouri Department of Labor and Industrial Relations site and find the most current annual wage order or any previous wage orders. What does an annual wage order look like? I'm glad you asked that question as well, because this is what it looks like. Right. This is an older one that we're up to the annual wage order 31 now. This is annual wage order 28. So you can see particularly here that this is a heavy construction rate sheet here, but there's also a building construction rate sheet as well, which is quite a bit more lengthy and has a few more different types of trades on them. But right here, you can see what rate of pay gets paid for these particular trades. So this is why it's important to have this on site at all times, just in case you get those questions. And we want to know what type of construction that these laws apply to. Well, right here you can see is any new construction, reconstruction, any improvements, enlargements, alterations, painting or decorating, or major construction. So this is good to note because there are such thing as maintenance projects. So prevailing wage does not apply when it comes to maintenance projects. Only these that you see here. We talked a little bit about posting requirements. And I mentioned earlier that the annual wage order itself must remain conspicuous. Now, if there's a situation, there are some smaller projects where there's not like a job trailer or a large fence that you can post it on. It should be readily available. The foreman, supervisor should have a copy of that on them in their truck, just in case a worker wants to know exactly what they are supposed to be getting paid. Signage. There within the Missouri Prevailing Wage Law, there is statutes that state that all construction vehicles need to have signage on them. And I know we're wondering, why do we have to have signage? It doesn't have to be permanent. It can be temporary as well. But this is important because if there's an accident involving that piece of equipment, we need to know who it belongs to and who to call if there's an issue. That's why. Bids should be based on a rate for the scope of work defined for each occupation title. So let's talk about the bid for a little bit. So annual wage order, how do we get to the right annual wage order for the project? Well, it has everything to do with the bid. So once the bid, the project a particular project goes out for bid, the annual wage order that's in place at that time is locked into that project. So if if you ever find yourself asking which wage order applies to my project, typically on a city funded project, they'll have that annual wage order for you. But it should be the annual wage order that was in place at the time that that particular project went out for bid. I want to talk about a little bit about the daily labor force report, because this is something that's a very important document when you're working on city projects, because it is a snapshot of what took place, who worked, what were the weather conditions on that day. And this, if you see here, you have the project number, it has a project title, it has a contractor, subcontractor, any lower tier subs that are involved on the project. But mostly, we want to make sure that we have the names of those individuals, their occupational titles, and the time that they work. Because we want to know, hey, if there's an issue on the project ever, if it comes up, if someone complains, we're going to, as compliance officers, we're going to go to the daily labor force report first. Then we're going to look at the certified payrolls, and we're going to compare the two, and then and somewhere between there, we're going to find out where the discrepancy is. So this is something that all contractors, subcontractors will need to complete daily. Even if there's inclement weather, we want to make sure that you put that on there, because a worker could come by and say, hey, I worked on this day, I didn't get paid. Well, we're going to look at the daily labor force report first. So we want to make sure that that's a snapshot in time of who was on the project. And we want to make sure down here that before you sign or execute this document, you want to make sure it's authentic and correct. So within the city of Kansas City, before we didn't accept 1099 workers, right? But we have since changed that mindset, because as long as those independent contractors or 1099 workers are presented as actual employees of a particular company, or they are listed as a actual contractor. And the important part is that they get paid the fair wage that they're supposed to get for the particular trade or scope of work that they participated in on their project. So a lot of times contractors utilize 1099 workers and they're not paying them prevailing wage. That is incorrect. They must be getting paid prevailing wage, not a lump sum. They must be shown on the utilize the annual wage order for the rate of pay, and they must be listed in e-comply as an employee of that particular company or as a company themselves, and they must get paid a prevailing wage rate. And this is the rubric, and this is the rubric that we get from the state of Missouri to classify an employee versus an independent contractor. And so if you want this utilized, this is on the Missouri Department of Labor website, but if you would like a copy of it, we'll be more than happy to send it to you. In addition to, and I'm gonna just talk a little bit about this, to prevailing wage, we do enforce construction workforce goals. And we talked earlier about 800 hours or $300,000 contract. And so when that kicks in, construction workforce reporting is enacted. And so we have a minority workforce participation goal, which is 10%, and we have a female workforce participation goal, which is 2%. So those are the workforce goals for the city of Kansas City. And I know you want to get to the Department of Labor. This ends my segment. I really appreciate you taking the time out your morning to listen to me. I did want to talk to you a little bit about my staff, because I have to give my staff a shout out. Myself, I'm the division manager for the Contract and Labor Standards Division. I have my team lead, which is Miss Valerie Johnson. And we also have our additional compliance officer, which is Ms. Erica Torres, Carlina Slaughter, Mark Tilford, and Lysandra Flournoy. She's over statutory agencies and workforce. So I want to say thank you, and I appreciate your time.